not allow speaking from the audience unless some member up here has a question for the audience, and then we will do so. So if you holding your hands up and waving me wanting to speak and I ignore you, you know why. We do not do that. Having said that, we'll move into the order tonight. First thing on the agenda is report on the 2023 special census. Mr. J.
I am disappointed to report to the board 2023 special census has failed. We had a head count of 7,238 residents, representing 3,022 homes. However, we used a mailing list of our utility building, which is 4,391 homes. So only 68.8% of the total households within Oakland responded. Based upon the utility building address count and the average family size of 10.4 people per resident, we have a population of approximately 10,531. But because the census count is not where we need to be, it has not been submitted to the state of Tennessee, and our official population will remain as 8,936.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Okay, we'll move on. Next item is review and discussion of City Code Title 11, Chapter 4, noise letter from the law offices of Mark, I can't pronounce that last name, Meese? Is that close?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. J.
You may remember Mr. Meese has been at some of your other meetings on behalf of the home builders. He sent this letter outlining concerns on our noise ordinance, particularly the inability to work on Saturdays. You have the letter in your packet. You also have the current provision in the city code. You know, in a nutshell, much of this comes down to construction on Saturdays, and many of the complaints, in my opinion, happen early on Saturday mornings. I remember when the developer was building Highland Park up next to Northwoods, they were starting at 6 and 7 o'clock in the morning, and that was generating a lot of complaints. We've recently had some complaints about the new Village Park Phase 3. We had a number of complaints over on Tomlin Road last year. There are other cities that have Saturday prohibitions, but from my information, talking to others, it's rarely enforced. We're one of the few locations that actually enforces it. We do. I have, the building codes director has, if a developer or a builder makes application, a written notice to work on Saturday, the majority of the time we will approve that. I won't say every time, but the majority of the time we will acknowledge it. And that, I would say, for the last few months, it seemed to be working very well. But if there is interest in changing the time to allow work on Saturday in some way, it would require the ordinance to be rewritten.
Questions, comments?
Question. In the letter, it talks about selective enforcement of that ordinance. Is that just because we know that there's problems with construction, or are we picking on a certain builder, or?
I would certainly say we're not picking on a certain builder. I would probably acknowledge that there are probably people, contractors working on Saturday that we don't know about unless somebody's gone out. Last fall, we had somebody work on Saturday. The other challenge to selective enforcement that I think is, if you read this ordinance as written, somebody couldn't put up a fence on Saturday.
You actually couldn't go nail a board at your own fence on Saturday.
Right. It also says in here that you can't have your phonograph too loud, so have we got any calls on that recently?
Ms. Holmes.
Thank you. I also was going to read reading this, letter from the attorney, their opinion, is just like what Alderman Sutton said and Vice Mayor Liggins said, is that you can't even put shelving up in your garage, or say that that's the only day off you have, and you wanna build a little something in your backyard, with your children or something, and you can't do it. So therefore, is a suggestion that we need to, obviously, from the suggestion of what's written in this letter, we need to rewrite this, right?
Yes, but I would, with the exception of phonograph records, most of the problem is subparagraph H, which is the building operations. Now, it probably wouldn't hurt to look at the whole chapter, but building operations creates the most debate. The other thing, if I may, and I'm putting a different hat on for a moment. When we award the contract for the wastewater treatment plant renovation and expansion, we're going to have an extremely tight timeline. I hope that contractor will work on Saturdays. So we're either gonna have to provide exemptions for ourselves for a period of probably 2 to 2.5 years, or we need to change this ordinance for that. Now, again, at the wastewater treatment plant, there's no homes in the immediate vicinity. There is nearby, but it's not next to anything. But we're talking about heavy equipment in that, project. So, you know, there are times when this impacts us.
Would we give them, like you said, 2, 3 years, would we be giving them a, like you say, 2 or 3 years, or 2 years, would we give them like a blanket exemption or permit, say this will run from this date to that date, or they have to come every week to get one?
I would not think that would be fair, Ms. Deborah, for us to do it to ourselves and then tell other people they can't do it.
Well, here's the thing, and so, and I understand that y'all been doing that. But by our ordinance, you're not legal to do that unless they have an emergency. This is the only way you can allow them to do that is in emergency situations. And so I appreciate the fact that you're trying to work with them, I really do, but the obligations to this board to allow people to work when they need to work. Every other town around us, including Germantown, Collierville, that we're compared to, for some reason, they allow. This rule was wrote back when phonographs were being used.
Right, right.
I think that's the point you were making.
Yes.
I'm humoring it. So what we need to do is rewrite the ordinance. Mr. Wallace has showed me some from some other municipalities that I think that we need to closely resemble. But it certainly don't need to be illegal for somebody to go out there and work on their own house on the weekends, and we certainly need to allow. The selective part is ever so true, because when Rex worked on Saturdays, he could drive by, he ain't no way he knew if somebody was working. If you'll notice, like at Highland Park, that's behind my house, right? They all park down there in that cold, but they're working in all those houses. He would have to get out, trot through that mud, and go in there and see. As a matter of fact, me and my wife, I was going to show her the difference in the trusses from Village Park to Highland Park. There's a total difference on how them houses been built, and I was just showing her the difference. And I thought I was going into a house that nobody was in there working. And we got somebody in there working, wasn't it? So there's no way to enforce what we've got.
Right.
First of all, we don't have the manpower. And so I've been saying it for years that we need to do something about this ordinance and enforce it, because for the longest time we didn't even have anybody to enforce what we had on the books.
Okay. I think what I'm hearing in is the committee would like Rex and Mr. Johnson get together and come up with something. Mr. Cates, am I not representing you accurately there?
No, I'm fine. Is it gonna be they're not gonna be able to start at no 6 or 7?
No, I think if we do this, it needs to be 7 or 8 o'clock on Saturday and stop at 4. And we need to make clear that has to be followed.
Because that's where we get a lot of phone calls is early on Saturday morning. I know probably the whole board's getting it, that they work in late shifts and they sleep that morning to go to work. And if it was me, I wouldn't want somebody behind me knocking and carrying on when I try to sleep.
I agree, but let me tell you the other exception that has come up, that again, I think in many ways is a valid request. Roofers in July and August want to start early.
I would too.
And I won't say we've approved every one of them, but we have approved those on occasion.
Well, here's my problem with roofers. And where I lived, I've been exposed pretty heavily the last few years. I don't object to them starting working. I object to those radios playing. I've learned more Mexican listening to those radios, you know, and I just, that's my problem. You know, if people are reasonable, sure, you gotta work. And roofers need to be working at 6 o'clock in the morning, not 4 in the afternoon.
And if you're not, and if you're not in a commercial, you know, we talked about this earlier. My neighbor got a roof put on last summer, and it annoyed me hearing them hammers at 10 minutes till 6. But it was 2 days worth of work, and he got a new roof. I mean, it didn't put me out but a couple of mornings. So I mean, other citizens have to. Do we get any complaints or many complaints from people from just regular? Hey, my neighbor's putting shelves in his garage, and it's bothering me. No. So this is more geared toward. We could even put something in the thing that if you can work on your own house on Saturday afternoon if you want to.
Well, I think
what I mean?
we ought to allow work anytime if nobody knows what's going on, like painting,
Yes.
They had
finishing
cleaned
sheet drops.
mowing the grass.
Okay. Mr. Fisher.
What we got in the, packet was samples of codes and regulation noise decibels, okay? And there's a particular reason why that is there. It's because some cities find that working at a certain time is no big deal. Like I said, I just had my upstairs done, and I stopped them from working on Saturday. They thought they were coming in my house and work on Saturday. I said, no, it ain't happening. I sleep in that house, and the decibels would have been loud enough for me. But guess what? My neighbor didn't know anything. We need to come up, because right here it says from 11 PM to 7 AM. But you guys want to stop them at 4. I mean, these are all over. I mean, everybody got this.
Which section are you reading, sir? Are you reading C?
I don't know what the hell I'm reading. You gave it to me.
Are you reading?
Samples of codes and regulation
Oh,
of
okay.
noise ordinances
Okay.
from all these other cities.
Yeah.
And it's got different times, it's got different decibels. I mean, you can't play mariachi, you know, at 11 o'clock at night, blasting at 75 decibels. You can't. I mean, that's understandable. But some of these are like at 50 decibels. I watch TV louder than that. Okay, I'm deaf, but
Yeah.
what's the point?
If you recall, the last time or the time before that where the board had a discussion, one of the debatable points was how do we enforce decibel? You know, to say you don't work on Saturday before 8 AM or 7 AM, that's a hard and fast line you can enforce. But whether something's at 75 decibels or 80 decibels, we would need a decibel machine.
Every cell phone can read a decibel. There's an app on there, a decibel reader. Every cell phone can just go right next to your neighbor and go, damn, you talk loud.
Yeah, the person that would be best to address the time issues and the decibels would be the,
Mr. Rex back there.
Mr. Rex in code, yes. He can tell us what everybody else is doing and recommend, and we can just,
Okay. One more comment, Mr. Johnson.
I think the way, Mr. James is still in here, I think the way that they read it, if you can hear it over 50 foot, is that right, Larry? Sir? Yes, sir. So if you can hear anything 50 foot, it's a noise ordinance. Radio, a hammer, or whatever. If it's over 50 feet, that's noise, according to the police station.
Huh?
All right,
Toward this
what
too.
I'm hearing from you then is that I'd like Mr. Johnson and Mr. Rex back there to get together and look at things and bring us something to look at our next meeting. That agreeable to everybody?
yes.
All right, we will move on then. Number 4, presentations by Renaissance Group Architects. Mr. J?
At your meeting last month, you requested a brief presentation by Renaissance Group. They are the architect that are doing phase 1 expansion or the addition to the Fire Station 1, and they're proposed by the staff committee to be the architect for the proposed Fire Station number 2. So, Michael Terry is here to make the presentation.
Mr. Perry, welcome.
Thank you so much, appreciate it. We're gonna go quickly, and again, I just wanna take a brief moment to, for those who are not familiar with us, at least introduce ourselves and kind of go over a little bit of our experience with fire stations, and then, of course, answering the questions. And if you have questions during it, I'm certainly okay if you want to ask as we go. But our firm was founded in 1979, so we've been around a while. We currently have about 30 staff members. We reside in Lakeland, Tennessee, so we're really, really close to you guys out here. We provide architecture as well as civil engineering, planning, and interior design. And the other disciplines, we consult out of house. And we service a lot of markets, a lot of municipality work. We do a lot of hospitality work, schools, police facilities. But one of the things we do quite a bit of is fire stations. And so we really enjoy that. Briefly, this is our ownership team. We have 6 partners, and Ron Colin is here with me. He and I are both partners in the firm. That kind of looks like some mug shots you might see in the police department, but anyway. Today we've done over 14 fire stations, and we've done several fire administration buildings for a lot of municipalities in this area and near the Nashville area. Typically, we're doing over $250 million of construction work. Not that we're contractors, but that's what it represents a year. We like to think we're a middle-sized firm. We're not too big, we're not too small. We do large projects, but we do a lot of small projects as well, and we enjoy all of it, to be quite honest. We make a commitment to meet project milestones. For you guys, that means, most importantly, budget, timeframes, as far as when you guys want to get these jobs on the streets for bidding. Of course, once we get a project going and bid and under construction, we also are out here doing construction administration. We're overlooking the construction for you as our owner. And just quickly, we've done actually, and I know you guys are not requesting that we do a LEED certified structure, but we've actually completed 3 LEED projects for fire stations, 2 in Franklin, Tennessee, and 1 in Germantown. So certainly are accustomed to working in that arena too. Technology-wise, we feel like we're up to date on all technology. One of the things that you guys will see once we get into Station 2 is we do a lot of photolistic renderings, which really helps us confront to you guys, share what the real ideas are. So you guys are going to be seeing images that early design phases that are going to look fairly real, which again is going to help translate our thoughts, and you guys have a better chance, I believe, proving things. Project approach, just real quickly, and this is throughout our company. We believe that investing time to develop relationships is important. We like to use the word value. Sometimes, I know Walmart uses it a lot. Sometimes there's a negative connotation to that. But what we're talking about is we want to understand what you guys are looking for in any project, particularly fire station. So we want to design it in a way that it meets the needs, because what your priorities are, we want those priorities to be on our side too. So at the end of the day, I tell my clients this, I don't want any surprises. I don't want you to be surprised. When you come in and see the finished product, I don't want the Chief Walls to come up and say, hey, I didn't think it was going to be that way. No, I want to make sure we understand what we're getting during the design, so that there's not any real surprises in what any product is. Experience in fire stations, I put together just kind of a brief listing. Franklin Fire Station 8 was the first one we did in Franklin. 12,700 square feet. That was a LEED silver project. And I've actually got cost per square foot on these, and of course that was when we built them. That one, for example, was $262 a square foot. Station 7 was pretty much exactly like 8, except we added an EMS bay, EMS sleeping rooms to it. So I think it ended up being closer to about 17,000 square feet. But anyway, that's just a brief plan of it. Most of the fire stations we do are 3-bay type fire stations. That seems to be what most municipalities are looking for. The sleep rooms and all that vary from district to district and how they want to do that. So we've kind of done a little of each. We did Columbia Fire Station, Columbia, Tennessee, Fire Station 3, 11,600 square feet. That one was later than Fire Station 8 in Franklin, and that cost was $335 a square foot.
And not LEED compliant, accredited?
They did not require it to be LEED certified.
Right, it was kind of shocking that you could do it cheaper with LEED accreditation than you could with.
Well, but there was 3 years difference.
Yeah, it's a time frame.
It was a time deal. As inflation goes, things got more expensive. This one was really, this is one of my favorite fire stations we've ever done because they gave us a photograph of their original fire station that was downtown Columbia. It had burned years ago, but they had some old photographs, and we actually took it and we designed the exterior to look very much like it. And it has turned out great. I've been told by the fire chief that the seniors in high school come out there and do their senior shots out there in front of our station. And different things, which does my heart good because it is a really attractive fire station. I feel like it works incredibly well for us.
Is the fact that it's a two-story building, did that make a difference in cost or design?
Typically, that makes it more economical to do because the one thing about the fire station is the apparatus bay is you have a height factor that you have regardless. And a lot of the fire stations we do take advantage of that and they want to do a 2-story. Typically, on the second level is where the sleep quarters are typically. And there's different amenities that different jurisdictions would like. But yes, I feel like it's more economical if you can go up.
It's cheaper to build up than out, right?
Typically, absolutely. So, that's just a rough, I know y'all can't see that, but that's just a rough plan. But, again, different sleeping arrangements, all of it vary a little bit from what they are accustomed to and what they desire. Germantown Fire Station, we did that one, and of course, that was back in 2000, and I guess we finished it in 2008, I believe, and it was $212 a square foot. It's just timing. It's not. I wish I could compare them apple to apple from the same year that they were built, but again, that one was an older one that we did. But that was actually the first one fire station that we got a LEED certification. It actually was LEED Gold, which with the new requirements are kind of hard to do now. But we just finished one in Bowling Green, Kentucky. That one was actually a 2-bay. They actually wanted a 3-bay. Budget-wise, they had to reduce it to a 2-bay. And it's a smaller one. It's 11,470 square feet. But that was finished in 2001, I think, 21, and it was $348 a square foot. Again, the smaller typically, the more the square foot costs, but it kind of works out. But anyway, it is a 1-story fire station too. This is one that we're currently working on the design. It's for Spring Hill Fire Station 4. Again, it's 17,300 square feet, which is a little for us, it's one of the larger ones that we've done. Of course, they have 4 apparatus bays, which is the first one that we've done with 4 apparatus bays, which is really nice. So, again, we're not through with the design of it, so I don't have any square foot cost numbers, but I know they have a budget of $7 million. And they're counting on $350 a square foot. And that's basically what, with their research, and I helped them, I shared information that I had based on what we had done, and that's kind of where they came up with that number.
Is this a type of
the apparatus bay portions are typically block, and because of the seismic requirements that we typically have, they're typically 12-inch block walls. What we've done to save money is when we get to the sleeping quarters, we've actually went back to a metal stud system, so we haven't taken the block all the way through. Again, the firemen, you have to understand, these facilities are 24/7 facilities, and I rarely have any issues when I go back and visit the ones who've done it, that they've been abusive to it. They treat it like their home because it is their home. And so by doing that, we're allowed, and I'm comfortable about using chipboard on the inside of sleeping rooms instead of block everywhere. And again, it's been nice, and it also gives us a way to save a little bit.
And current codes require ICC 500 storm shelters in them. They're also essential facilities, so they're beefed up structurally. So there's a lot of things there that add cost to it to make it basically a safer,
Yeah,
long-lasting building structure.
The code itself has special requirements for facilities like this.
Mike?
Can't have your firehouse burn down.
Mayor and I were at a meeting the other night, Mr. Wiggins was there. They were talking about electrical and HVAC cost are extremely difficult to predict right now.
Absolutely. You know, what we have found is, it kind of goes through cycle. We just finished Lakeland High School, which was a $50 million project. And we had issues getting roofing material. Commercial, not shingles, but, roll good type roofing. And, that was kind of a big deal on that one. I've had others where we still can't get generators.
Yeah, generators are tough.
15 months out, it's crazy. I mean, when we get a contractor on board, that's one of the first things that we try to get them to order, because I don't understand that, but that seems to be a big deal. Electrical panels are also a big deal. So that whole electrical system, I think, is what you're saying is true, because I don't know what the factories, I'm not sure if they're not producing them like they need to, but I've heard the breakers, or even some of the larger breakers, are hard to get. So it's just kind of funny how it goes. We really try on the mechanical equipment side. That's one of the first things I ask when we get a project bid out is there long lead times on mechanical? Because we've seen that in the past, but at least right now, I don't see that as being as much of a problem as the electrical portion. But again, that could change. 2 months from now, it may all be different.
Are you talking about generators that they'll use in the case of a power outage?
Yes, sir.
Like Generac?
Generac is, they do residential and commercial. And Generac, we did a little office building that was about 8,000 square feet. It took us a year and a half to get Generac.
I got a warehouse full of them.
God bless you, man.
They ain't mine. I can give you the name of the man that owns them, if y'all need them.
We have a fire station.
There's some big ones, there's some big ones in there.
Oh, yeah.
We have a fire station under construction in Bristol right now where it's a 100 kW generator, and they'll be open and operating before their generator shows up because of the long lead time.
And it doesn't really matter if it's a natural gas generator or a diesel generator. Doesn't seem to matter. It's still all in long lead time.
Yeah, he was, and this guy, he was getting them in from all over, and they were back ordered. And then they started coming, and he bought them from Generac itself, from Home Depot, and it's unbelievable how many of them he's got. And I think people are cornering the market on them based on what you just said.
That may be exactly what's happening. It's really odd through the last 3 years of how things happen and why. And I wish I could explain it, but, like that, for example, I don't know. I don't think that buildings have increased drastically. And I don't know why the generators are so hard to get, and that could very well be that you've got people, agencies that are kind of stockpiling them. I'm not sure. But again, we have a long discussion with our contractors.
Take a picture of it and send me, I'm gonna take a
Try
picture
it.
of all the generators we got in the warehouse.
Try to emphasize that.
Okay.
Collierville, we're also under design on the Collierville Fire Station 6. We did their last fire station for them, which was back in, it was early 2000.
Yeah, 2004.
But this is one that's across the street from Collierville High School, which we were the architect on Collierville High School. so most of them look like they belong in the residential area. This one is not. The one in Columbia, was not. It was actually in between two schools. And so, they don't always have to have pitched roofs and all that, but what we find is, again, the majority of the time, the fire stations are connected to and in the neighborhoods of residents. So we try to blend that. We don't want to stand out, but we want to blend as far as architectural style goes. Or we're good neighbors, I guess. Ron mentioned Bristol. That's actually one of the smaller ones that we've done. It's under construction right now, so I don't have actual construction costs yet. It's 8,500 square feet, so it's only has 6 bedrooms. It has 2.5 apparatus space, 2 full bays, and 1 half for an ambulance, actually, too. So again, they all differ a little bit, but we've done quite a few of them and feel like that we have a pretty good understanding.
Okay, can I follow up on that?
Sure.
I'm certainly not speaking for everybody, but what we'll be looking at in Station 2 is not a lab. It's not a big building. But at the same time, as you're talking about, it's in an area that's both commercial and residential, so fitting in is very important. For me, sitting here right now, that is probably the most realistic for what our site would be. That's me speaking.
Yeah, and I think as we move in, I know you guys are going to be discussing and hopefully approving the proposal that we have set forth. And that proposal really is for programming and schematic design. And what that does is that gives us a chance to get with the fire department here locally and go through a programming exercise where we find out all the things we need to know, what their needs are, what their desires are, how many people are we going to be sleeping here, what type of sleeping arrangements do they prefer, all kind of things. And through that, we take that information and we do a schematic design, and we'll come back to this board, I'm sure, with that. And what you'll see is floor plans and elevations or what this building looks like. And it'll be done in a 3D way like these are. So it's very easy to understand. Everybody will get to see what it looks like before we move forward. And in that process will help us nail down how big this thing is and all the other components to it. And with that, we can project some costs based on, what we have seen recently in the marketplace. And so that's normally the process. We have some people that come to us and they already know what they want, they know how big it is, they know this, and that's great, but most of the time we go through a programming exercise process so that we can help the end user get the product that they're looking
Okay, Mr. Fisher?
Do you have any idea of a design to show us? Or are you just showing what you've done and we're gonna pick out from one of those?
I say this, we've done a lot of, every fire station's different. There's just different components and they're operated different. I've got some fire stations that they wanna put a police office in it because they want the police officers, if they're out and about, to have a place to pull in and just have a little office. They can go to the restroom, they can plug in a coffee pot. I have several of them that have that component in it. Don't know that that's needed. I have fire stations that have what they call basically a medical room. It's not a big room, but they keep medical supplies in it because what I find in a lot of jurisdictions, people, your husband may be having a heart attack or think he is, and instead of taking them to the hospital, they'll go to the fire station first. And so we have ones that have rooms set up where at least it's not a hospital environment, but at least it's a place that they can go to. Don't know if that's needed, but there's all sorts of variables. The way they sleep is a huge variable. I have fire stations where they put 3 bunks in a room or 3 beds in a room, but only one person is in there on a shift. I have fire stations that want individual bedrooms. They're small, one bed, and the day of having a group sleeping quarters is over because we do have to consider So, and how we develop the bathrooms also is part of that thought. So there's different ways to do it, and everybody wants to do it a little different because everybody's needs are a little different. So I guarantee you we can design one that fits what the fire department here wants. I just don't know what that may be. The only thing I'm feeling right now is based on the location of it, it's more than likely gonna have more of a residential look to it. Because it seems like, I know there's gonna be commercial out there, and we may look at that, and that's really gonna be a lot of people's opinion. It's not my decision, even this board's probably gonna have some comments on that, but typically, businesses don't, their expectation of the fire station is not like residents are. The residents want something, usually if they're in their neighborhoods or close, they want something that more blends with that kind of style.
Do you have a rough figure of what each one would cost? And I know you don't have it for all of them, but what are we looking at roughly? Because you said at this point it was this time, this much, and then this time it saying it grew, what is grow?
Well, if I had to say right now, I would say $350 a square foot, strictly from a square
In
foot
millions.
standpoint.
That's $3.5 million.
Well, if it's-
And the size of that one they were looking at would be 2.9 to almost 3 million.
For our original grant application request, which is just in process with Farmers Home, we used 10,000 square feet at $300,
300?
which is 3 million. But now that is strictly a working figure, nothing, I mean,
But he's saying right now, 350 a square foot, that's $3.5 million.
we're probably,
Or lower square foot.
yeah, we're probably in the 8 to 10,000 range. I don't think we'll be above 10,000.
I just don't understand how Bristol got away with that for so long. They're 33 square miles, we're 10.4, they're 27,000 people.
That's probably a replacement station.
It is. I think well, they are closing one down. It's not right next to it, but it's in kind of an expanded area for Bristol.
Yeah, it's in front of a school in a residential neighborhood. And Mike, we actually have the bid number on there. The bid number is 3.9.
Okay, yeah.
And again, though, in that area, you got Bristol, Kingsport, and Johnson City.
And Bristol, Virginia.
And there was difficult to get contractors to come in and bid it, I guess because of that part of Tennessee. So the prices came in really.
We bid it earlier, last fall, and there was only one contractor.
And what was the square footage of that one?
8,550 or something like that, yeah.
So-
But what we found out was that when the one contractor was the only one turned in the bid, they couldn't accept it because they had to have more than one. But we talked to the contractor and he said, listen, I looked as far as Georgia to try to get subs to come up there, and he said I couldn't. And what we found out was Bristol, Virginia, which is right there next door, was building some sort of big casino deal, and it had basically taken most of the workforce that was up there.
We got Blue Oval coming, so
Well, and that's a great point.
we're gonna be hurting
I
too.
thought about that because, in a way, you may have a situation similar. The good thing about this area is you've got more of a source.
Bigger market.
Bigger
course.
market of contractors. And so, I mean, it all plays into it. And, of course, the smaller the facility, typically, the more cost per square foot, because there's certain things in a fire station that you just have to have. Like the apparatus bays are pretty much the same whether you have a 17,000 square foot building or an 8,500, depending on how many you have size-wise, they're pretty close to the same because of the size of the equipment that goes in there.
But wouldn't that be the cheapest part of the project as well?
Typically, you're putting some heat into it, you're not cooling it. It's a big span, it is block, but yeah, if I had to break down the square footage, that's typically the least expensive square footage.
Yeah, the doors can be expensive depending on what
Yeah, I
you
mean,
go with.
there's just so many, I don't know how Oakland has experienced the doors on the fire station, but the doors are some of the most problematic portions of fire stations because typically the overhead door product is just not made to be used like a fire big problem is firemen tend to run through the doors. You know, they get a call, adrenaline's flowing, and when you have the overhead doors as they go up, once it gets out of sight, they take off, and they usually clip them and take part of them with them. And so now they have doors that open side to side. They have high-speed doors. These are all more expensive, but in the long run, we'll weed through that, but it may be worth investing a little extra money to avoid a maintenance issue. So those are just a few things that we'll go through. But, again, until we get through that process, everything's kind of I mean, it's not a guess, but a lot of unknowns. I'm assuming we'll have a generator, it's an emergency facility. Certainly we will have a generator. Again, Bristol has agreed to operate it for probably 6 months till they get their generator, but
Yeah, they're-
sometimes you gotta do that.
Yeah, they're looking at maybe finding one that's just small enough to handle life safety, and they're, you know, going down their avenues and finding their own, so trying to get something.
What's the time frame of a building,
Time frame of Bristol or?
from building?
Okay, typically, again, let's just say for round numbers, we're talking about 10,000 square feet. Typically, it takes a year to build one. If they get to the 17,000 square foot number, typically it's more like a year and a half.
Mr. Fisher, if I may add to that perhaps, and again, this all rests with the board, but what we're looking at in fiscal year '23 would be doing the schematic design and geotech and things like that on the site. In FY '24, we would do the full design of the building. In FY '25 would be the construction, open in FY '26.
We've tried to build them in 8 months. It doesn't matter what size they are, they just doesn't seem to happen. I'm not sure why. I mean, if you're building an 8,500 square foot building, you gotta do it in 8 months, but it just, for some reason, again, a lot of that's because of, you know, delivery issues and shortages of this and that, and so it's kind of, but I've learned through the last few years to say at least 12 months on construction.
Okay. Are we pretty comfortable? Has anybody got more questions? Thank you, sir. Unless you have something else you'd like to add?
No,
Mr. Johnson? Okay. Anything else, gentlemen? Okay. All right. Thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for your presentation,
Thank you so much.
and we will let you know.
Mr. Mayor, they're involved in the next two items.
Oh, I can't get rid of them.
No,
Dang, I thought I was rid of them.
Hey, sir, how much would a pole barn and 5 tents cost?
I've not priced that, so but I can.
and we want the lights where they shine across the highway.
All right, moving on here, we're gonna move on down to, review of proposed resolution 2302 for bid awards for fire station number 1 addition. Mr. J?
As you recall, we opened bids on the fire station number 1 addition. That's in your packet. They came in well above our anticipated cost and our budget. Renaissance Group Architects have been working with the low bidder, and our goal is to come back at your March 16th meeting with a recommendation.
Okay.
And I can say we've made great headway with it. Met with them actually twice today. And we went through and, really looked hard at everything that we were asking. And we, you know, worked with the fire department. We've scaled some things back, so we're, but I feel pretty good that we're gonna get to where we need to be. But I probably won't have an exact number for Monday or Tuesday next week.
Okay, well, we'll look forward to hearing from you on at our meeting.
Let me ask you a
There's
question
a lot of cost out there out front in concrete.
when he's
Yes,
done.
we reduced that by more than half. Again, in a perfect world, you know, these fire apparatuses are big enough vehicles where we would never put them on an asphalt drive in a new building. But it's been on asphalt drive here for years. What we did, we kind of extended the entry point with
Well, that's my question. If we're cutting so much money out, I mean, is it still gonna be functional and
Yes,
look good? And,
We have not,
I mean, I don't want the Walmart version, like you said earlier.
no, I understand that. We have done a few things to just the exterior skin. Really the front of it stayed the same. Down the side, we eliminated some of the brick and did a few things, but nobody really sees the side elevation. So we've done that to save some costs. I wanna put the money where it's seen and needed and not hid somewhere. But other than that, it's really, the site was a huge part of it, huge part of it. And, we're working through, we went back and checked some of the electrical stuff, and I think we can, but nothing that, it's gonna function and give the fire department everything they asked for originally. The changes we're making really is not impacting that. When you get a bid and you get to see what subcontractors and how they're bidding, you go back and you analyze it and you say, okay, what can we do? And we kind of work through it, so I feel good about it. Again, it's been a good process.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you again, sir.
Thank you so much.
Mayor, Resolution 2013.
2313.
Thank y'all.
Thank you so much.
Well,
2313.
Is that part of
Mike,
this?
Mike,
You skipped number.
2313, I don't have a 23.
Number 5, review proposed resolution 2313 on fire station number 2 schematic design.
Right, I'm sorry. Thank you for pointing it out to me, Vice Mayor.
we are recommending that we retain Renaissance Group to do the schematic design only for Fire Station 2 at a cost of $25,000, and that is in this year's budget in the fire fee fund.
How much money is in the fire fee fund?
There is the $190,000 that was originally budgeted for the addition at 1. There is 100, and I believe it's I've got it in my memo here. 175,000 was in the budget to do the full design. That obviously is not going to happen. So those two together, we've got, what would that be? 340,000.
365,000.
That's how much in the fire fee fund in round numbers.
How much do we get per year in the fire fee fund?
It's been averaging a little over 100,000 a year.
But with buildings slowing down, that's gonna slow down too as well, Mr. Williams.
That's right.
We've done 16 permits for the first 2 months of this calendar year.
Okay. Any other questions? I'm gonna try again, get you out that door.
No questions, y'all. I'm gonna exit myself. Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming out, sir.
Appreciate it.
Dodge the raindrops. Okay, we're down to number 7. Review of proposed Fayette County, Town of Oakland interlocal agreement for fire and medical services. Mr. Johnson?
Since your meeting last month, we have received from the Fayette County Mayor's Office the proposed agreement between the county and the Town of Oakland for fire and medical services. This is outside this city in what would be the old District 4 response area. We just received this. I forwarded it to Tom Minor, our attorney, to look at. But this is consistent with, I think, the discussions the fire chief had with the county last year on this.
Questions?
Is this the same agreement every other Fayette County municipality has with them?
This is the new model. If you'll recall, sir, the old was there were 13 districts, and there was a varying amount per district. We received 37,000. 2 years ago, that number, 37,000, had not increased since the 35,000.
35,000.
Since the very first agreement 10-plus years ago. We asked that it be increased. The county commission never considered that. So we then started having discussions about all the EMS calls we were running. Chief Walls can go into it in more detail, but this reflects the reality we have of EMS calls versus fire calls and the cost of each. But, sir, to your direct question, what is interesting, my understanding, and I could be corrected, but my understanding is the county wants to use us as the model agreement for the other fire departments in the county. And my understanding is they have not presented this to any other department yet. Of course, it would, as this is structured, it's based on the number of calls, and we are the largest provider in the county.
Well, just curious, if the county, let's say we were the model, they made an agreement with us, and then they went to Summit. Summit said, no, we can't do it for 150, we'll do it for 160 though. Will we go to 160?
We could certainly add that provision.
You understand?
Oh, I do.
And the other thing is what you brought up about it's the same way as don't you think that we ought to have something in there where this thing is reviewed annually or biannually or something?
Actually, that was one of the recommendations I was going to make. I think it annually makes sense, but biannually might make more sense. I mean, it took 10 years plus to get the first agreement revised, so saying we're gonna do it annually may not happen, but
With the way inflation is nowadays,
That's
I
right.
mean, what we can do today, we may not be able to do it tomorrow for it. What if diesel goes to $7
Yeah.
a gallon?
That's right.
I think if you
Well-
wanna make a motion at, if someone wants to make a motion at the, March 16th meeting, add a provision on review and all, I think that'd be reasonable.
What about a fuel surcharge? You know, you laugh about stuff like that, but here we are, we've been battling that ever since we had a project start.
Yes.
And so if you have it, is that price based on fuel at diesel at $4 a gallon? And so it's, I don't know, it's things to look at. I just don't wanna make a bad deal for our citizens. I wanna put some thought into it and make sure we make the right deal.
Let,
But I mean, that's what I do for a living, I make deals.
If I may, I think to your first point, I think there are probably some fire departments that this will not be financially attractive to them. Now, that's their issue, not ours. But there are probably some fire departments that are getting more from the county than based on their number of
I
runs.
mean, you look at Braden was getting same thing
They
we
get the
were.
same thing we get.
that's right.
Making very few calls, so what if they say no and they stick with the 35,000? Now they're making
Now,
$500 a call, we're making 150.
And-
How's that fair to us?
well, that point right there, places like that, they're probably not gonna do an agreement like this. There's some of these smaller places that their entire fire department is funded based on what the county gives them.
But if you
So,
look at our run
they're-
data,
they're
our
not
run
gonna do that.
data's going up.
Right.
And so we will get the $150 per call as our run data goes up.
And,
As our run data goes up, our costs go up as well.
well, can I,
Go ahead, Mr.
okay.
Wiggins.
I've talked to Chief Walls about this. I talked to Chief Hartfield about this. I talked to a lot of people about this. I asked Mr. Walls one simple question. How much does it cost us to go on a medical run? And that's where all this came from. So I appreciate, this is a lot of information. He has a really good plan. And, if you wanna talk more about it, feel free to cut me off. But he thinks that when we get a new truck for him to drive, we keep this old truck. So we're not spending all this money in diesel. Our cost per run for these medicals is gonna go way down, because we're gonna have a medical vehicle that's not a fire truck that we're sending out on these medical calls. Right now, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we spend $125 to take a call. So if we switch this other vehicle, that what we already spend is gonna drop and go down. And what we're getting is gonna go up. Right now it's at 150. So, Chief Hartfield, there's a lot of county commissioners sitting up there, and they had a lot of questions too. And he did tell them, we would have paid this much money to Oakland. I think, was it last year? If we'd have had this agreement last year, instead of $35,000, we would have got $44,500. Okay, so we would have got more. But now, to your point, I don't disagree. If this is a 10-year plus deal, everything's gone up. 35,000, if we weren't doing this, maybe we should renegotiate to 50,000, so maybe you're right, maybe 150, you know, I don't know.
What do you say our cost
May-
was to make an hour?
Right now, 120.
123.
But,
What's that include?
that includes, like in this, I include, the average mean time on the scene is 25 minutes. Some calls are an hour, some are less, much less. But the average time is 25 minutes, so I included the salary of 2 people. A lot of times we just send 1 person depending on the call. I do 100% believe that this needs to be reviewed annually, not biannually, simply because of fuel costs. In this, I included enough fuel costs if we had inflation this year, but we don't know what it's gonna be next year. So it's gotta be done, I think, looked at every year, because that's the biggest problem that I see. Medical supplies, we have a pretty good agreement with the ambulance service, that since we're making these calls and we're helping them, that we get a large amount of, medical supplies given back to us instead of us, having, out-of-pocket costs for that. That's the reason we keep our medical costs down to about $8,000 a year, which normally it would be well in $35,000. But, the biggest thing, it's gotta be done annually, because we have one disastrous year of fuel shortage, and we're in the hole.
That was a trick question I asked you, how was that cost figured? Was my payroll included in that? Was these guys, was the town manager, was whoever's gonna be doing the billing and the collections on this figured in it? Was their retirement figured in it? Was their insurance figured in on it? That's what I'm trying to see, what is the real cost?
The
and how
personnel
that's
cost
broken
should have been,
down? Because there's a difference in what you think it costs and what it costs you.
Uh,
Oh,
You gotta look at the wear and tear of your equipment, your oil, and tires.
Yeah, that's one thing that's in this. I allotted, $5 per call for oil. There's maintenance also included in this. 70 cents of this goes for vehicle replacement costs. And the biggest thing with that is, just with the levels we're at now, 260,000, I base this off 260,000 or 260 runs per year. We'll be able to replace the vehicle every 4 years. With the mileage we rack up, that vehicle will never be out of warranty. So we'll actually be down on maintenance costs, on that.
But you still have to add it in.
Yes, it's added into it.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to take just a moment and flip the discussion. If you remember last fall, when the town received its every 5-year ISO rating evaluation, both Oakland and Somerville were, a factor in our evaluation was ISO considered our fire district, that Oakland Fire Department was the primary response entity. And therefore, instead of serving the 8 square miles, I think it is, of Oakland, 10.4, we were serving 20 square miles. It hurt our ISO evaluation, both for Oakland and for Somerville. This agreement in the first paragraph changes that to where we're automatic mutual aid. Now, for the residents, that still means we're gonna go, but it changes it that we're no longer the primary response entity under the ISO definitions. That is a big deal for the town and its residents.
I included in this packet, it's got, some stuff in front that when it gets back to, 1710, specifications, also it explains automatic aid. The automatic aid does is, it basically, mutual aid and automatic aid are 2 different things. Mutual aid, if we went to a mutual aid system, which you get no ISO credit for, is once we get on scene, we see we have a working structure fire or a rescue situation. We then have to call the alarm office to request mutual aid. Then they would in turn call their administration to make sure that they don't have incidents going on or something that would prohibit them from dispatching that. Then if they don't, then they would dispatch the automatic aid, just like right now with Arlington. If I need an aerial from Arlington, I have to call Shelby County
people and they'll get that cleared. You're talking about an unacceptable time frame. Automatic aid, we've developed a system that on the computer, when they pull up that address, it breaks down every address in Fayette County. Automatically, it'll come up who's the first in department, the second in department, third in department, fourth in department. So they don't have to figure out, they just look at the colors that says, oh, on this, Oakland's first in, Somerville's second in, Macon's third in. They page those out automatically. That's what automatic aid is. We have to have the same radio frequency, we have to coincide with standard operating procedures where we all touch bases, where we operate on the same thing. If we had a mayday where a firefighter's trapped, they know the mayday policy, it's a standardized mayday policy. That's the reason we actually get by on the west end, even though volunteer departments are rated under a different schedule. We have areas in Oakland that are beyond the 5-mile range. That means they should get an entirely different ISO rating, much, much higher. But because of Hickory With being down there, just that station being there, we have automatic aid, so they counted that as our resource. And that helps us a lot. The problem we have with Somerville is they have West End fire stations that's within 5 miles, but that's not where they run out of. They run out of the one in downtown, so we couldn't actually count them this time as a resource. Macon, we could count as a resource. So there's a lot of footwork that goes in this, but what was killing us, the first time David came in and did a rating, he was brand new. He did not count our fire district against us. This time, he's very much better versed on his job. He said, well, I need your runs, your actual fire reports for this year. And we gave it to him. He says, where are your district reports? Well, you didn't count that against us. Well, that's not the way the rules are. He showed us. He said, I need those reports. Well, ISO bases it on how long a fire engine to the first in 1.5 miles. Then if you're not in that 1.5 miles, they start taking points off. I challenged them on the west end saying, that's not fair because I can be on that end within X amount of minutes, not related to the 1.5 miles, which is basically 35 miles an hour. So he took that into account, we got more points, but what killed us was that outside fire district because it was taking us 9, 10, 11 minutes to get there. Yes, ma'am.
Chief, I understand there was a lot of discussion at one time of pulling back our fire district.
Yes, ma'am.
Did we do that, or are we working on that?
We've done it quite a bit. Really, our response area, our fire district will be our county line or the city limits as far as the fire district. Medical calls, we go out about a mile. The furthest we go is up to Feathers Chapel, going down to Feathers Chapel by Ivy. The nice part about that, there's nothing really in that section as far as housing. But going to Feathers Chapel, that's putting us about 2.5 miles, and that's the furthest we go. South, we go to Sellers Road, you turn in, and we basically go right past where the city has land down there. A lot of people think the sign is where the city limits ends. No, it goes all the way down to Sellers. Then where Avon lives, over in there, we cover Oakland Acres and that area there. We really don't go west because that's Hickory West's territory. Now, in the past, we've made a number of calls into the Hickory area because they're volunteer departments. And how do you have somebody that's not breathing, they don't respond, they go to the next district in the runoff, which under this, we would be reimbursed for that also. But sometimes we have actually gotten further out if it comes into a 3rd, 4th, or 5th response district, depending on. But what we've also worked in this now is if Oakland resources, which I'm not going to empty the town anyway, but once we spread resources out, they're going to move a county district into Oakland to cover us. Also, in this agreement, we're going to cut, nothing against them, they're volunteer departments. We're going to cut them out. We're going to be first in. But under this also, once their resources wanna release our companies to come back into the town. So there's a lot of work been done to this to assure, that it's covered. Now, do we need resources? Inside your package, you'll see, a document called 1710, National, NFPA. This is the standard that they use for personnel on scene. Normally, on a single residential house fire, you're supposed to have 15 people on scene. All right, that's based on the first 4 minutes. The first company there will have 4 people. This will allow them to meet the law as far as OSHA, which is a law of 1910-120, which is 2 in, 2 out. That means when I commit 2 people inside that burning building, that something could go on with an air pack, building collapse, so like that, I have 2 people that can make a rescue on them. All right, within the next 8 minutes, I have to have 4 or 8 people on scene. Within 12 minutes, or 9 minutes, 12 minutes, excuse me, you have to have the full assignment there. That means everybody there, 15 people. That's not realistic for towns this size. Fact. It's not realistic for this area. But we have to have the resources, because it breaks down what each person's role pretty much is. We can't do that. 99% of the time, we don't need outside resources, because our guys get there within the 4 minutes, we have the fire knocked down. Basically, last year we made 20 fires, actually only about 4 where you actually read about them. Most of our fires are what we call rooming contents. We get there fast. It's in one room, we get in there, knock it out. We disregard people coming in. But last year, we had the county come in 10 times to assist us, and we went out in the county 8 times. So that year, we came out better than they did. The year before that, it was vice versa. So that's something you can't tell. But none of us can stand alone out here. It takes a community to raise a child. Well, that's basically what it takes, a community to save lives. Germantown, Collierville, Millington, everybody's under this same program. I think this program is actually a little bit designed better than theirs. Arlington has 2 fire stations. They have 12 people per shift, but Shelby County is in their running order. They're in Shelby County's running order. They send one company out everywhere in Shelby County. Germantown relies on Collierville. Collierville relies on Germantown. Both of them rely on each other. Memphis is pretty much the only standalone fire department in the West, except when they have bad weather, they have to have small community fire departments bring water to them, which you saw this year, 2 years in a row, that Fayette County, Hardeman County sent tankers into Memphis to help them. So, automatic aid is not a new thing. Matter of fact, everybody relies on it.
Any other questions?
Well, I just want to make I think, I hear what you're saying. You correct me if I'm wrong. If we do this deal, you have a way to cut our costs. The county will actually wind up paying us more money. It's a benefit to the county because we're still going to service their needs. And to the average citizen of Oakland, their homeowner's insurance is going to go down because we're going to get a better rating.
And it gets
Yes.
down to this too.
That's, and I don't mean, one last thing to Mr. Sutton's point, once we can enter this agreement, come next year, we can always say, well, we need to go to $165,
But
you know.
it needs to be annual.
Yes,
Let's
yes.
just look at something. Say we stop EMS at the town limits. Well, you're coming down Wart Road, you leave Oakland subdivision, you get on Wart Road, you have a heart attack, that's county. Who's coming? If you're with, how long is that gonna take? Macon? R12's up past the 35-mile marker. Yvonne falls and breaks her leg. She's at home.
Okay, don't wish anything.
Yeah, we're there within, to her house, we're there within 6 minutes. Other than that, she may be looking at 40 minutes or even longer, especially if there's not an ambulance in the county. The bad part, Tomlin Road's in the county. The left side, going up Tomlin, is in the city. The right outside is in the county. You have a kid hit by a bicycle, there's not an ambulance in the county, which happens. How long is a kid gonna lay there? You know, we're not talking about we're looking at that mile and a half. You're going into Shelby County. There's a quarter of a mile that's in no man's land. That's where you happen to have your big one. You're sitting there waiting. Shelby County's not coming over. So there's a human need also, but we definitely need to be reimbursed. This is based on the economy now. Next year, it needs to be relooked at. That's the thing, it's got to be looked at, I think, annually.
Has you had any discussions with the county? I have not. Will we bill this monthly, bi-monthly, semi-annual? How will it be paid?
It'll be done quarterly,
Okay,
just like the payments are now. I'll present my figures, they'll present their figures, and that's the way it'll be paid out on.
All right, one more time, any questions,
Really?
comments? Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Judge Wayne.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to number 8.
Mr. Mayor, with Tom Minor not being here tonight, we'd ask this be deferred to your regular meeting.
Okay, deferring number 8. Moving on to number 9. Review and discussion of resolution on charitable grants and donations. Mr. Case.
I just take the paper so we could get some information. Everybody read this?
Well, I'll make a comment. I think we're gonna have to look at this. We're gonna have to make some decisions on how we're going to do this. Because since our last meeting, I've had 2 different organizations, not before, approach me wanting money. So we really need to come up with some regulation on this, or what we're gonna do.
The comptroller's office has put some stuff in here that I'm read. Some stuff that has been changed. I think it needs to be gone over real good with some advice from our town lawyer on this. When Mr. Sutton was there, it was brought up about some stuff that they wouldn't, correct me if I'm wrong, but they wouldn't present the board with some of the cost that they were using for them.
It's just stipulations in the TCA code of 654-111 that they have to meet before you're allowed to give them money. And it's you know, it's tough. It's tough because there's organizations that need money, but, you know, I've always tried to do what was legal and right. If they could follow 654-111 and it benefited the citizens of Oakland, I was always for it.
Well, I had a question from a constituent, and the mayor just mentioned 2 other organizations. I mean, do they do stuff in Oakland? Do they help Oakland? The other 2 organizations? I mean, right now, we give to Fayette Cares and Carl Perkins, maybe the veterans. If we got 2 more, that's 5. I mean, what are we gonna do if we got 15 organizations and they all want a couple of grand apiece? I mean, that's real tax money.
Here's where they'll fail you most of the time and not bring it. Any nonprofit organization that desires financial assistance from municipality shall file with the city clerk a copy of an annual report of its business affairs and transactions that include, but is not limited to, and it's several things.
Yes.
And one of that is a description of the program that serves the residents of the municipality. So they have to show that they serve the residents of the municipality.
And Carl Perkins did.
And they have to tell what they're gonna do with that money.
And the reports have to be open for the public to review that you're referring to. And I don't think that was being done, was it?
Well, there was organizations that were getting a lot of money here. They were getting a lot of money.
You wanna add something here, Mr. Bond?
I just wanted to say that we did have an organization that definitely turned in their audit, and then we had one that turned in the form required by the Tennessee Comptroller's Office.
I know Carl Perkins, they gave a percentage of the residents of Oakland that they were doing through the abuse trial and women's thing. Remember what percent that was?
I know, the thing about it, when we got a report, it showed that places in the county were getting a lot more service out of that without having anything invested in it. And child abuse,
Services.
neglect, and things like that. And so, I'm not gonna mention any names of any charity, but I can tell you this. Anytime that I wanna give to a charity, I'm gonna look at that charity and I'm gonna see how much of that money I give returns to the actual cause and how much of that is spent elsewhere. And then I'm
Salaries.
So some charities that I personally give to is Folds of Honor, is Wounded Warrior Project, where over 90% of those funds that get donated return back to. Well, one of the charities that we were giving money to, they took in about $600,000, and $289,000 of that was spent on payroll expenses. And so, I still donated to that charity personally because I think it's a good charity. But who am I to take somebody else's money? They decided not to give to that charity, but then I take their tax money and give it to them. And so I just feel like charities are individual decision, not for some guy in government to decide where I want your money to go. And so that's what makes it tough. Now, you take the Veterans on the other hand, Association, that did a project for us that we've been trying to get done as a town
For years.
for 7 or 8 years before I was on the board, okay? They come up with a way, and if they wouldn't have, it would have still cost $200,000 because of what we would have had to do to get it done.
That's right.
Bureaucracy,
They did something for theirs.
they were able to do it and save us money. And I think we're indebted to that organization. I think that the town's indebted to it because they fixed the problem that this town had and obviously couldn't fix on their own. And so it's a little touchy, but when you show that an organization like that has contributed to your town and they want to show you what their books are, I don't think there's anything wrong with it as long as you can prove that those people provided you with a service. But you still have to consider that you're taking somebody else's money and giving it away.
That's right.
That's what you have to consider.
All right. What is the wishes of the board giving direction to the town manager to come back with a resolution?
On a resolution for giving to charities,
Yes.
my recommendation is to follow the TCA code, 654-111.
Okay,
I agree with that.
okay.
You have to follow the
And-
law.
I'm not denying that, I'm asking for what your directions are for the, and yes, you did. Thank you. Mr. Johnson, if you could devise a resolution for that, I would appreciate it, and get it back to us.
Well, we already have 3 resolutions in here.
They were specific too.
Yeah, they were specific.
Give us one of those different marching orders.
Is this something that we should do by resolution, or is this something we should do by an ordinance? Establish something from this day
I
going
think-
forward?
I defer to the attorney, but I think as long as the resolution refers back to TCA, that should be sufficient.
And it seemed like those do.
Difference, it's something to do with when money's involved, one of them has to.
It has to be appropriated by ordinance. But if this is a resolution giving direction on the policy and procedure we will follow, I think that can be done by resolution. But the donation itself would have to be by ordinance. Because it's as you say, it's appropriating money.
Okay?
Yep.
Everybody good? We'll move on then. Discussion of town entrance signs. Mr. Fisher.
Chief Walls was explaining where Oakland was. I still don't know where Oakland is. I know it's in Tennessee. But I guess with the new urban growth area, we're gonna have a new line of, where we can grow to. I think the sign out, I guess, right past of Oakland is kinda short by about 3 miles. And the sign right here at the end of, what is it called, Macon Road Church or whatever it is, school? Tomlin Road is kinda short if we're gonna end up expanding that way. We don't know, that can stay. But we need to move those signs. We need to put them where they belong. And I'd like to see where we have forgive my words, a monument sign, but I can't use the word monument anymore because now monuments are all being torn down by certain people. But I think we do need to have something that distinguishes Oakland from everywhere and take these signs that are already here and put them on 194 and 196 where they start. And there are signs out there, but move them where they should be. And I'd like to know if there's any stomach for getting monument signs. I know the word monument, but it's still called monument sign to me.
We have a place in town that does them. You know, Lewis, I don't know what he calls
Yeah,
them exactly,
now,
but I had one done for my dog.
I-
Yeah, you say that, yesterday, y'all see me, I'm driving something different every time you see me. So anyway, I had 2 company vehicles in my driveway, so I bring a guy home from work, to pick up that car, to take it back to work. And so when we get to the sign that we have, he says, so this is where Oakland starts? I said, no, it was back there at that blue sign, once we crossed. I said, you know where I showed you where Cherry Road was? And right past that, there was a blue sign. And so I totally agree. I don't know where they come up with putting the welcome to Oakland signs or Oakland signs.
right.
I don't know.
I
I don't
think
know how they come up with it.
That was the old city limits, before the dispute with Hickory Wood.
Was that before 2008?
Yeah,
But before 2000.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, no, way before then.
I would say,
That across all the way to 192 Cherry
I
Road.
have no objection to Mr. Fisher's proposal. I do not. And I think people need to know where Oakland starts and where it ends.
I get questions on it all the time.
I think,
White police cars sitting there with
They need to-
every end of it.
like, why are they in the
I
county?
think we might wanna wait until we find out what the urban growth boundaries are and
No,
all that.
no,
Do
'cause-
we need to do that?
No, because that won't, this is city limits.
Right,
So all we got, we can act on what we have at the present time.
Yeah,
yes.
but if I understood Mr. Fisher, and he and I have talked, we probably want to, I'll say design, new signs for 64 and then relocate the
Right.
So
Yes.
we got to come up with a design for a new sign.
Okay?
And the only thing about the urban growth boundary, if it's possible, we need to get rid of that several hundred
We are.
feet
That's a proposal.
between the county line
Do
and
we
just bring
need-
that into the city.
Okay, Mr. Fisher just mentioned something to me, maybe the board would consider, having, some of the school kids do designs. And present.
put it out there
present
for-
designs to us, on what they think the design should be like, and maybe we could offer a prize. I'll donate the money for that, we don't want to use city money.
What about any citizen?
What?
What about
Any
regular?
citizen, that's
Right.
fine
What
too.
about anybody? And then have the board pick a design, go,
They can turn it into the Parks and Recreational and Cultural Arts.
Jeff designed our flag.
Is that what the technical,
Okay, I think we have a consensus on what we want to do on that, and Mr. Johnson,
Okay.
you'll proceed with that?
No. No. It'll take long.
Discussion of elevated water tower lettering, Mr. Fisher.
Ms. Hummel,
Thank you. That was actually what I wanted put on the agenda. Thank you, Alderman Fisher. Eric Armstrong has presented, that was in the packet, 3 different designs that they had been presented in 2020 when I think the tower got printed. Since I've been living in Oakland, a lot of times, not constantly, but I do talk to citizens and people saying, why don't we have a name on our water tank or whatever? Everyone else has got one. And I know sometimes we say, well, it probably got shut down because it's too expensive. But we got a budget coming up we're going to be working on, and I'm not saying that the 3 designs that were presented in our packet are the ones that we need to accept, but these are the ones that Eric showed that they had presented back, and I think it'd be nice, Oakland, that we're growing, and we need to identify ourselves and have, maybe we put Baby Yoda on there, I don't know, but, we need something
Well,
on
you
there
know
to
what?
identify our town.
what?
I like the first
Baby Yoda.
design, I don't really like the last 2, but
I like the
I
first
don't mind putting a name on there, but just a few years ago, we had a 100th anniversary, and I don't remember exactly who it was, but man, that was a great design for that. And if we could take the oak tree,
Yeah?
from that design and put it up on that,
Well, these are just
up
some that
above
were
this
just
word.
presented. There could be some new ones that could be presented. This is what they have. I'm not saying
yes.
we're gonna pick from these 3, but I mean, we could get something, and
Beautiful
I think it'd be great. That's what I
A lot of
want.
cities,
On,
A lot of cities put the name with either the city seal or some kind of insignia up there, so yes.
Use my oak tree.
And
Yeah.
I'm gonna say you could do that with vinyl at a
Yes,
very low
vinyl,
cost.
at a very low cost is what I've been told.
Laminate vinyl.
Laminate vinyl.
Hey, I'll even
That
volunteer.
way, you could also put the flag on there.
There you go.
Okay, Mr. Fisher,
I think,
that's it. Mr. Fisher,
I think, what, Vice Mayor was talking about, that 100-year sign that went all over the T-shirts. Come to find out that Adrian Wiggins, whoever that character is, designed that. So I think he's trying to blow his own horn.
It's a beautiful design. It's a beautiful design.
So I just want to make sure everybody knows
Was it
that.
copyrighted?
Did you get a sign?
I didn't, no, I designed the thing and I didn't even get a design.
I may have one in my garage and I'll get it to you.
There you go. Hey, we can even save more money on this project if we just, tie a rope around Ms. Hummels' waist and shimmy her up there. She can do the,
Hey, I'm pretty talented. I'm fairly flexible too.
Mr. Johnson, I think that would be an item we need to consider in our next year's budget.
That's why I
Yes.
wrote down, but
You would please do that.
Thank you.
might also want to put the Jeff Fisher sign on the one we're gonna build right by his house.
on the water tank?
thank,
Yeah.
thank you for not saying the Jeff Fisher Monument.
Ain't no water,
Flashing lights need to be on.
Spotlight, yeah. Make sure it's designed right toward his house.
we got enough lights, thanks.
Mayor, thank you for not saying the Jeff Fisher Monument.
Is it fair to say that you like the
We have one
script
more thing.
design better than block?
First one in the packet. I think
Yeah.
everyone showed that too, and said, I like it a lot.
And then would put something, insignia, emblem or something with it?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, you got your marching orders on that one. All right. Last idea, discussion of activity center use. Ms. Hummel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was there today playing bingo. I didn't win, but, it was a lot of fun, and everyone was commenting about how great the activity center room looked, so it was a real positive note about it. I thought the assistant director who ran it did an excellent job today. I do want to, so as often as we're renting this out, which we got HOA's meeting there, I think we had time to research to find out if we had an agreement, and as my understanding, nothing was ever found. So we need to come up with something, and I have put together, and I don't mind giving it to whoever needs to look at it. We need to have an agreement where we would have a request form, a schedule of deposits and fees, and also the building use policies. And I've just pulled a sample from a place that I know someone that has a similar activity room and guidelines that they have. And I think it's important that we do that, or even set the fees. I don't think we just say for free. We need at least come something in for the electricity or whatever, and plus liability and stuff. And I don't think we've had anything in writing. It's just a free-for-all right now. And I think we need to come up with something.
We've been charging $25, but I'll be the first to say we've been inconsistent with that too.
We need to be consistent.
$25.
Mr. Sutton.
If I could be recognized, here's my concern, and not only about the rental of the building, but I don't know how many people was on the board or whatever, but y'all remember when they were gonna sell T-shirts to the centennial celebration?
Yes.
The lawyer impact says you cannot charge fees and this, that, and the other, and that's why we don't run a concession stand, because we're not allowed to sell stuff. And so I wanna make sure whatever we do is legal to do. I think you can recoup cleaning fees, but I don't think you can make any profit on that whatsoever. So, but I do want that, to get that legal opinion back, and Miss Yvonne, tell you, it was something about how that fund would be deposited, but it was a big stake.
It's a separate
And
deposit,
so,
separate
I know
account.
we have new members on the board, I just wanna make y'all aware that it's not easy to charge for things, and I don't know if we can charge them people to play bingo.
What they're doing,
We're gonna
what
stop,
they're doing
we're gonna
is-
stop that.
I want to be recognized.
All right, I'm gonna let Mr. Fisher be recognized here.
That could be considered gambling.
What they're doing is they're charging the bingo so they can rebuy new prizes for the next week. Now, if you're saying we can't do that, I have no problem with that, but that means that we need to have a budget line item for the Parks and Rec.
No, Jeff, be honest.
I'm just saying, we need a budget line item to put on the Parks and Rec, say, we need about $250 to buy winning prizes
So
for bingo.
I couldn't believe, so I asked this question, Jeff, so those t-shirts, I said, well, hold on, how much did the t-shirts cost? And they was like $6.55.
Right?
I said, so if you charge $6.55 and didn't make a penny on them, you still can't sell them? They said, no. Did somebody eat some t-shirts on this?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
You did it?
I ate them all.
I thought that was the craziest thing in the world, that you.
What have
Just
I-
trying to keep
but-
somebody
Mayor
out
Vaughn wants
of
to
jail,
recognize.
so I
All right, hold up a second. I'm gonna go to Yvonne, and I'll go to you, Ms. Holmes.
I suggest that if Oakland is going to be the sponsor of the bingo, then they need to be charged the $25 or whatever for the rental fee. If they are going to, that way they can manage their own money. I mean, if they wanna pick up money, you know, charge for admittance and all of this to be able to replenish their, gifts and stuff of that, bonuses and all of that, that's fine.
They have Miss Ann doing that.
Ms. Holmes?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Regardless of how much we end up charging, whether we charge or we don't charge, I agree with what Yvonne said, but we've got to have these forms signed for liability purposes. Don't be shaking your head at me, Mr. Wiggins.
No,
But
it just
anyway,
comes-
we need agreements signed for legality. We
Okay.
really do.
And there
If you will
is-
pass that along to Mr. Johnson
I
over
will.
there
All right.
at the meeting.
I will.
I'm
Thank
gonna
you.
go back to Mr. Wiggins here, and then Mr. Vaughn, if you wanna follow up, I'll get back to you.
I don't have a problem with the forms. I think it comes back to Mr. Sutton's point. Can we even charge money to rent the facility?
Mr. Mayor?
And I had something else. You go, because I forgot it. Too much.
Every community center I've been involved with, we charged rental fees for the use of the rooms.
Yes.
For private activity.
Yes.
And I'll share with you, we're gonna have a wedding at the activity center in late March. I told her it'd be $25. You know, maybe I'm off base, I don't know, but every place I've been, we've had a community center and we charge rental fees. Now,
How can you charge, are they responsible for cleaning it and leaving it like it was?
no, yes, they have to clean it.
But like Ms. Holmes said earlier, if we don't have an agreement or a contract, what if they get down there and tear something up?
Well, I agree, we need agreements.
Yes.
But the fee needs to be reasonable and related to,
$25 is not reasonable. How are we gonna clean it up for that? How are we gonna send somebody to open it up and then go down there and make sure it's locked up?
In the agreement, it'll state you're responsible for leaving the premises exactly as you found it.
But still,
Yes,
you
but-
got a good point
but-
on going down there and locking it up and cleaning it.
And are you gonna charge your
Well-
residents the same price you charge somebody for $10 too?
that's
That's
what we need
exactly
to
right.
talk, that's what we need to talk about.
All right, hold up. I'm gonna go to Mr. Fisher, then I'll go to Mr. Wiggins.
That's why this work session, she brought that up, so we can discuss it before we have in 2 weeks, bring it up to an ordinance. Say, hey, this is what we're gonna start
And
doing.
I certainly appreciate the mayor trying to keep us in order. But here's another concern of mine, all right? We're sitting here in a workshop, it's supposed to be open dialogue. There's a difference in a meeting and a workshop. And if we're gonna have a meeting, let's have a meeting. Let's advertise it like we're having a meeting right now. That's it. This is a meeting. It's being orchestrated like a meeting. We're having a meeting. And we did not meet, if we're gonna have a meeting, let's stick to a meeting. If we're gonna have a workshop, let's have a workshop. But having a meeting during a workshop is not fair to the way it was announced to the public of what we was gonna have.
Well, I want to emphasize, there's been no votes taken tonight.
There's been no votes, but it's still conducted like a meeting.
In other words, you don't want me to recognize someone to talk.
I think that we ought to be responsible enough, but if somebody needs brought into order, I don't mind you bringing me into order, and I'm sure everybody, we've all been called on. But I think we ought to be more open. I think in a workshop that the public ought to be able to say something. It's why you
Yes.
have a workshop, is
Yes.
to invite
Yes.
ideas and dialogue into your conversation, and that's why you have a workshop. But we announce that nobody else can say anything, and I think that's exactly why you
Well,
have a
Are you saying we're not the smartest ones and some of them would be having some good
Yes,
advice?
I'm saying you're not the smartest one. That's what I'm saying.
I was under the impression when we started talking about this, when Vice Mayor brought this up, having a workshop the first Thursday before the meeting.
Yes.
To get that citizens input.
That's exactly right.
We're sitting here now and say, you can't say nothing unless you recognize,
And we have the ability, we have,
You guys can set the rules. I was just going by the rules that I was given when I started this whole
well,
process. So,
we,
I do, because we're a rowdy bunch. And we need,
and look, we have our regular meetings. If there's a need, we can call a special call meeting, and that's just for us to have a meeting. But on workshops, we need input from department heads or somebody from the public. We tell them you can't talk about agenda items. Why don't we put the agenda out so they can come to the workshop and tell us what they think about it before we vote on it in 2 weeks? Now, while I have the floor, let me go back to a couple of things. Just because we put in this agreement that it's $25 and you are responsible for cleaning it, how many people think that's going to happen 100% of the time? We're going to have to go in there after and clean up and do some checking and do a lot of this stuff. As far as the prizes for the bingo, I could be wrong on this. There's a budget for Parks and Rec, and activities is included in that budget. This would be an activity that we offer for our citizens. All this prize money stuff should already be budgeted in that account. And dadgummit, I had one more thing and I forgot what it was again.
And wait a minute, to your point, Alderman Wiggins, Vice Mayor, is that also in this agreement is covered that. We might ask for like that big wedding, we might ask for a deposit, and then, if they don't bring it back, they don't get their deposit back if we
One
go
more
to it.
thing, one more thing before I forget it again.
Really?
Hold on.
I was told to
My
shut
hand's
up.
standing up.
Hey, if we have a town function, we can't serve alcohol.
No.
Okay?
No.
But if we rent it out to the wedding, I expect that they will have alcohol.
Only if they get a permit. I'll need to correct something, please, if there's a misunderstanding.
Well,
The
only
lady
if-
that called about the wedding,
if
it's
I
a
rent a-
small, intimate affair. It is not a big deal. They're having a reception elsewhere. She said it was going to be a dozen people or so, that's all. It is not a big wedding. She was looking for a neutral venue.
You know, you could put in the agreement, no alcohol be served in the premises, such as this one. You can do that, since
Well, if
this is
somebody rents
owned
it
by
out for
the
that purpose,
city.
I don't have a
You can
problem with
put
them
that in
drinking
there.
alcohol if it's a private
You
event.
can put
If
that
I'm
in
renting
there.
a private building,
It's with 250 feet of a church.
Okay, so,
well, we're not selling it.
yeah, there's a difference of selling. We cannot sell. They can bring their own alcohol.
and in Oakland's ordinance now, because we go by the states, and the states don't have church laws and how alcohol's sold.
But
All right, I'm done
So,
there.
they have to get a special use permit.
all right, beyond this, are we done with that? Okay, why I'm asking that is, okay, so if we're past that, I do recall us having a vote on, or an agreement to have a work session on the first Thursday and our meeting on the third Thursday at 7 o'clock. We started our meeting at 6 o'clock, and it's on the agenda that it's 6 o'clock. I do recall we took a consensus of 7 o'clock. Because when I got a call, said, hey, you gonna be at the meeting? I said, what time? Said, 7 o'clock, and they said, no, it's 6 o'clock, and I went, what? So then I looked at my thing, sure enough. I remember
Okay.
we talking about 7 o'clock, am I
You're
wrong?
Mr. Fisher, we'll make sure it's 7
I'm
o'clock.
glad it's 6, because Memphis starts playing at 8.
Really? Is that where we're going?
All right, I have one more item before I call on Mr. Cates. I am allowed to call on Mr. Cates.
Mr. Mayor,
You don't have to adjourn this, because it ain't a meeting.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Mayor,
All right, hold on a second.
So
Now, I am
works-
gonna ask for a little quiet right now. Yes, sir.
I have two non-agenda items just for information. We may have a problem with the date for the fireworks on Saturday, July 1st. I have been asked by the vendor if we will look at alternate dates. He and I talked about Friday night, June 30th, Sunday night, July 2nd. I just want to ask for some feedback on either of those dates, but I want to emphasize we may still be okay with Saturday the 1st. He called to let me know there may be an issue.
Do we have a contract?
Yes. No.
not been signed.
It has not been signed. We have a contract that has been submitted. the check has been prepared, but that's why he called me today. No,
There's
sir, we do
reasons
not have a
why-
signed contract.
There's reasons why we're supposed to be doing our due diligence and getting things done in a timely manner. This wasn't done in a timely manner.
No, it wasn't.
Okay?
Mayor,
But now, whoa, I'm
You're on
gonna,
your own here.
I'm gonna throw somebody under the bus. That's not my fault.
Oh, damn.
I'm cleaning this one up. I'm cleaning this one up, so.
hey, while we're talking about non-agenda item stuff, this is March. This is March. Are we gonna, in 2 weeks, am I gonna get a preliminary budget?
No,
Okay.
under the charter, you get the budget on May 15th.
We're gonna have to change that. We are absolutely gonna have to change that, because that means we have to read a budget and decide if we wanna pass it that night and then have a second reading in June. We need to be starting budget work right now.
The staff will prepare the budget and recommend it to the board by May 15th. That's what the ordinance and charter says.
We should have known that before we sent the charter up to get it
You
voted
sent it up,
on.
you changed it last year. In the past, there wasn't a deadline. You changed it last year.
Okay?
If
Mayor?
it-
I need to get, before I can sign this contract on the fireworks, we're looking at either, if we can't do it Saturday night, we're looking at either Friday night or Sunday night, and I would like some feedback on which date the board would rather have.
I don't have an opinion.
I will remind you that the 4th is on a Tuesday,
A lot of people go to church on Sunday nights.
okay? If we do it on Friday night, we'll have to start it, we do an all-day thing on Friday, don't we?
We'll start at 5.
It would have to start at 5, we do it on Friday night.
That's when we normally start on Saturday, so.
Well, the idea that people get off work, but we'd have vendors selling hot dogs and hamburgers and cotton candy and have the playground for the kids.
I don't care what day we do it.
All right, then Mr. Johnson, I'll handle it, we'll let you know.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Friday's better.
I think so too. I distributed to the board a proposed job description, a revised job description for the Public Works Director's position, which included adding responsibility as the Capital Projects Coordinator for the town. I think with the number of projects we have going on, that would add real value to the city staff. Also, I don't know that it would have changed anything in the end, but it probably would have helped the situation on Bowers Road, for example. And so, I've submitted that to you. I'd like for you to look at it. I'd like for, any comments, pro or con, you might have to that.
I definitely think that it's needed, and the reason why is because of having what it's gotta do though, you gotta have somebody with a working knowledge of a vast amount of things. And one of the things that we have, the biggest project we have going on right now is the sewage treatment plant. And so, to have somebody to monitor that, to make sure that our vested interest is taken care of, I think is a very important position. Not only that, we're looking at new water test sites, we've got those projects going on, we've got roads that's being paved and things like, I think it's a very important position.
I have a strong candidate,
foot of the street as far as having to go around, I guess it
The
is.
notice process, and I begged it to be looked at, and I wanted to know if there was a state minimum on time, and I think it is. But we were given notices beyond notices, and the board voted not to give any extra time, just do, but we need to come up with some legislation that says that if an owner has been warned and went through the process once, he don't have a notice next time. That's what we need to see if that's legal with our attorney.
Or a much shorter notice next time.
It's legal. Where I came from, that's what we done.
You know, if somebody has been warned and went through the process, there's no reason to go through the process with them again.
And here's the deal too, if these people own these houses, if I'm a renter and I move out, and they just chuck my stuff on the street, I'm going out of Oakland, I don't care. Are we billing the people that own these houses, are we sending them, hey, we gotta pick up your trash, here's a $300 bill?
I think we would have to do a resolution on that, an ordinance on that about a fee.
Our taxpayers shouldn't have to,
I agree.
Anything that involves a fee has to be done with the second reading and public hearing.
that's fine.
And I think we need it, Vice